All right, y'all, it's James, Quantum Mechanic. Today we're going to be talking about brake tools and the tools I use to work on brakes. So this is my brake crash bag. You guys have maybe seen it if you've seen some of my other videos on my toolbox tour. I went through this, but I'm going to go through this in a little bit more detail, talk about some of the, just a little bit more detail about the tools. The bag itself, this is a great bag. Love this bag. But let's start on the bag, okay? And then we'll get to some more specialty tools. All right, so let's start on the outside. First, I like these two picks. These are my favorite pry bar picks, and these are my absolute favorite step-on. These are the mini Talon grip adjustable needles. These are fantastic. I use these all the time. But these right here, these curved and straight picks from Snap-on, these are absolutely fantastic. I mostly use these for popping out rattle clips like this. It makes really light work of that right there. It's like really, really nice. Their curve is really nice. It's also good for popping out. You can see the customer got their money's worth out of this. But it's really good for popping out these brake pads as well, okay? So really, really like these two. You can use anything, but a good pocket pry bar, something small is good. And that's what I carry here on the outside. Extra pair of gloves just in case. This right here is a really, really great steel wire brush. This is really good for cleaning in between. See that? Where the brake pads ride and the rattle clips go. So this is a really good tool for cleaning up in there. It fits just about perfectly inside there, just like that. So just a really great tool for that. So I really like, and I use this one a lot. The next are just some basic tools. So these are the Snap-ons, these are the Icons, and these are Icons as well. I did a video on these pliers. These are really great, but they don't really live in my toolbox. I don't really have another place to live, so I put them in here. And these are great for, let's say you need to pull out a clip or a slide pin or just something. This just does really, really well for pulling those out. Cotter pins, this is really good for cotter pins, and this is just general plier use right there. These are for mostly used and pretty much exclusively used for cars with drum brakes. So I'll do a video on drum brakes one of these days, but this is for the springs. This is for setting the springs, pulling them out, stuff like that. I've had these forever. They work great. I like them a lot. They do well. This right here is used for cleaning up the hub assembly. So this goes through the wheel stud or the lug nut stud, and it goes on your half-inch drive, and then you can clean around over it. So this is really good for cleaning up the hub assembly after you get the brake rotor off. Another little wire brush. I don't use these too much because I have this other one that works well, but I have it just in case. A good set of, I use cheap, I guess, a cheap set of safety glasses when you're using, these are actually trash now, but when you're using a brake cleaner or something like that, using the power tool or something. This is really good for those Honda screws, for getting the Honda brake rotor screws off. This is a Mac impact driver with a nice thick, nice good bit. I use this in conjunction with my hammer back here, which we'll get to in a second, to knock those screws off. So really, really great tool there. All right, so this is that brake spoon. It's used for adjusting the rear drum brakes or parking brake. It's so you can get through the viewing window and adjust. So this works really well for that. I use this if I ever have to replace a brake caliper. This is to squeeze that flex hose to keep any of the brake fluid from coming out. It works okay. Next, I use two flathead screwdrivers. These are what I use to pry the piston in when I'm kind of lazy and I can fit it in there. If I'm going to be replacing pads and rotor, which I pretty much always do, I'll stick this in between the pad of the rotor or the caliper, and I'll pry it back to get that piston to push back in. So really great tool there. And sometimes you got to use two if it's a 4 piston. I use two just to put them both back in. So that's that. Next, I carry around some flare nut wrenches. These are the most common sizes. This will go on your brake bleeder here, just like that, and it'll help bleed the brakes for you. Okay, next, this is a S-hook. This is for holding. So after you take your caliper off, you hold it up like this on something, suspension strut or anything like that. This works really well for that. So super great tool. I love it. I have two of them. They just work great. I can't say enough good things. I keep a can of brake cleaner. I prefer the non-chlorinated stuff. That's what lives in my bag right here. This right here is the M12 die grinder. This thing is absolutely fantastic for cleaning up hub assemblies. It's just, it's really powerful, really strong. Use a roll like disc, and it just works really well. I mean, it just, it cleans things up really nicely, really quickly. So really got to have one of those or something like that. The next is a 3-pound mini sledge. I've talked about this a little bit, but this is for if your rotor or your drum is stuck, use this to just basically hit it, and it'll pretty much come off. Use it in conjunction with the impact driver as well when you need to get one of those rotor screws off. But just overall, it's just a good tool to have for that. Okay. Next thing is this right here. This is from Lyle. This is my absolute favorite piston depressor. I've had a bunch of other ones, but this one works really well. So after you get the caliper off, you basically shove this in here between there like that, and then you squeeze like that, and it pushes it out. So really good tool to have. Depends on what vehicle I'm working on, but I usually don't crack the bleeder screw to push those in. It's just because it's a little bit more work, and unless the customer is paying for a brake bleeding job, I don't. I try not to break the physical pressure boundary of the brake fluid, okay? So some of the fluids I use, these are the only three that I use. This is Seal Glide. This is for the slide pins here, okay? This right here is anti-seize. This goes on to the actual brake rotor itself, or on the hub assembly itself, where the disc rotor is going to ride, okay? So that just really helps out the next guy, prevent it from seizing up and rusting up. And then the next one here, this is the brake part lubricant I use. This is going to go, after I put these anti-rattle clips or shims or whatever you want to call in here, I'll put some lube in here, just right in there. And what that does is it just lubricates up my brake pads, allows them to slide in a little bit easier. So that, and I'll also put some brake grease on the back of the brake pads as well, okay? There's some controversy there, but that's what I do. So, you know, your mileage may vary. Next thing I have here is some thread locker, right? Thread locker. So that's going to go onto the mounting hardware, okay, for the bracket here. And you don't have to use it. I know a lot of guys don't. Some manufacturers call for it. They'll call it for different colors, blue or orange or whatever, maybe red. But this is what I use, okay? I have some pretty generic. These are what I use to jack out the rotor or the disc. Let's say I don't want to beat on it with a hammer, or the hammer method's not working for whatever reason. I'll use these right here to jack them out. These are pretty standard. They fit into pretty much everything. This is a new tool for me. This is I don't really know what you call it, but basically what this does is when you put the brake rotor onto the hub assembly, this will go over one of the lug nut studs, and it holds the brake rotor in place, so you can manipulate the caliper and everything to get just prevents that brake rotor from falling down up on you. So this is a pretty good tool. It definitely could be better for how expensive it was. I think this was like $50 or something crazy like that. But you don't really need it, but it's nice to have, you know. Okay, the next thing is talk about bleeding brakes. So when I bleed brakes, what I use is, I actually use a Mighty Vac, but you can use something simple like this. This is kind of basically like a turkey baster. I use this Holt Mighty Vac right here. This thing works really great. Basically, it pumps up, creates a suction, and you can suck up pretty much any fluid you want. I usually do this for like power steering, or brake fluid is 90% of what I use it for. So that's that. But you can use something like this as well. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to suck out the old fluid, and you're going to put new fluid into the reservoir. Okay, so something that you can use to eat in. This is a lot more efficient than flushing all of that fluid all the way through the lines. You'll be bleeding the brakes forever. If you suck out the old fluid, put new fluid in, the new fluid will kind of sit on top, and then it'll push out the old fluid, and then you bleed your brakes until you get good, clean fluid. Okay, this right here, this is a really great brake bleeding catch reservoir thing. Basically, what this does is it goes on to your bleeder screw here, and then you crack that open, and it'll collect all the brake fluid. It's really great. It's got a magnet on it. It's kind of built into it. It just works really well. And I like that, like this hose is malleable enough to fit different size nipples, right? Because not all nipples are the same size. So I've been using it for a good long while, and I haven't had any issues or felt like I needed to change the size of that. So really great tool there. This right here is what I love. I love this tool a lot. This is the Slippery Pete manual brake bleeder pressure tank. Basically what this does is has a bunch of different adapters. It goes on top of the brake reservoir, and it pressurizes the reservoir. And what that does is it lets you pump this up, not to exceed 15 pounds. I usually go to about 10 pounds, but it lets you pressurize this up, and then it pressurizes the whole brake system from the master cylinder. Okay, that's so much better than using those like vacuum brake bleeders. Those vacuum brake bleeders put more air into the lines than this is just really great. And I work by myself, so I don't have someone in the I don't have someone inside the truck or the car or whatever pumping the brakes, and I'm not going to use the customer for that. So this is what I use for that, okay? So really, really another great tool for that. Highly recommend. I'll do a video one of these days on how to actually use this. I made a short on it. Check it out if you guys want. But just a really, really great tool, and it's pretty cheap too, so. Okay, so the next thing is going to be rear brakes. You still come across rear brake pistons that have the internal corkscrew for the parking brake. So use this. This is a right hand and left hand turn in those rear brakes calipers. It works. This is a cheap one I got off Amazon. I've had it forever. I've used it a handful of times. It's kind of not the best. These attachments kind of fall off. There's much better ones, but I don't come across it all too much. What I really like actually is the electronic parking brake. So the book label actually adds about 2.2 hours for use of a scan tool to compress the rear brake cylinder, the rear parking brake when it has it. Which is actually less work than using this right here. Basically what you do is you hook up your scan tool and you go into parking brake mode or brake pad replacement mode, and it pushes the whole caliper in for you. It's way easier than pretty much anything. So I actually much prefer it when they have that, but you need a scan tool that has the capability to send that signal. So this is my favorite. This is the Tote. This is the I'll put a link for it if you guys ask for it. But this is just a really great scan tool. It's bidirectional. You need something like that to push in the rear caliper, okay? So, and yeah, just really great. Also, if you ever, let's say you suck down the brake reservoir to below the minimum threshold, if it has a low level sensor on the brake reservoir, you can use this after you fill it up to clear the code. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions, or if you want to watch my video on how to do a professional brake job, there's a link for it right here. And yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for the support. Have a great day.